So having been here for more than a month, I have found so many differences between here and Merida. Sometimes I still miss Merida. Merida was exciting and such a beautiful town with beautiful people, but I am falling in love with San Cris. Now, even though they're both in Mexico, they don't have much in common, to be honest. And I'm meeting up with Anne from Priority Focus Life to discuss it. Anne and I met in Merida and became really good friends. So when we ended up kind of like moving at the same time to San Cris, and it's kind of made life easier in the sense that we have two completely different perspectives and experiences of San Cris. So we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. So if you're debating whether to explore Merida or San Cristobal, this might be helpful.
So good morning.
So this is Anne from Priority Focus Life, and we're just chit-chatting because we spent a lot of time together in Merida, and we just noticed like there's so many differences between Merida and San Cristobal.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have is good morning.
So one of the reasons that I wanted to come to San Cristobal specifically was because I heard there were so many vegan restaurants. And I don't know if I heard it from you, but most likely.
I don't think I knew that it was so many vegan. I just knew that Merida was not vegan friendly. And
yes.
so the chances of it being less vegan is
yeah. But she is the information central. Like every time I need to know something, I definitely go to her. And before I went to Merida, I watch all her videos, so I totally recommend that.
You should.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I probably heard from her that there were a lot of vegan options here. And to be honest, when I came, I was completely overwhelmed by the amounts. Like I have done a video on all the vegan options, but there's so much more. Yes. There is so much more.
Yeah. And even so, and I'm not a vegan, I'm not a vegetarian of any kind, but I do like veggies in my plate, on my plate somewhere. And in Merida, love the Yucatecan food, but you would get a plate of whatever and there would be either no veggies or super minimal amount. And so I miss the vegetables too. Like I wanted something with some crunch to it every once in a while and not have it just be meat centric. Also, I started to worry that Alex was getting really used to being a carnivore. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with being a carnivore, but
yeah.
Again, at home, I like to cook veggies with my meat. And so living there for so long, we would order food because I hate to cook, and they would not have any veggies or very minimal veggies.
Absolutely.
So I missed it and noticed it.
Okay, so for me, the biggest change from Merida to here, and something that it took me a long time to adapt to, is the vibe. Do you feel a difference in the vibe? Because I totally feel a difference in the vibe.
I mean, I think part of it's the international aspect changes the vibe, but also a wider difference maybe between the indigenous,
yes.
which I hate to use that word, but anyway, between the different types of locals that live here. So that's a little more obvious than in Merida, where I feel like I didn't necessarily notice per se if somebody was Mayan versus Mexican. I just noticed local versus expat, so here I think there's a bigger, you notice more of it.
Yeah, so I guess in a sense the diversity kind of creates different layers to the communication with the people, right? So for me, I was really used to in Merida just going up to somebody and speaking to them in Spanish and then creating that instant bond. And I found it so much easier to do that in Merida. Here, everybody speaks a different language. Everybody has different cultural nuances. So like smiling might not be so common for some people, and that is my guidance, right? If you smile at me, then I know that I'm kind of like being understood, I'm expressing myself properly. And smiling doesn't always happen here. So it did create like a different vibe for me. Not to mention that the fact that we're in the mountains and it's not a beach town. Even though Merida was not on the beach, it definitely had a beach town vibe for me.
Yeah.
Like, it was very wear your chancletas out kind of thing.
Yes.
More relaxed. And how do you feel about that part here?
I mean, I think it's relaxed here for sure. I have a relaxed vibe, but it is, again, that international concept of you can't assume that the person you're talking to will respond in a particular way. So Merida, known for being super friendly, and I think everyone is really super friendly. It was rare to find somebody who wasn't, whereas here, I think people are friendly, but different cultures show their friendliness in different ways. So everyone's been super helpful.
Yes.
But whether they choose to smile or not is up to their personal, you know,
Absolutely.
how they communicate.
Yeah. Hi. You should be one of my numbers. The healthy street dog. Okay, I'm just gonna do an impromptu here. So one of the things I found so interesting here is that most street dogs seem to be so healthy. They are fed by the community. They belong to the community. In the co-working space I go to, there's one that comes in every morning, sleeps during the day there, gets fed, and then goes off and hangs out with his friends.
It's a dog-friendly world here.
So as I'm recording this with you, Anne is also recording it with her viewers. So we've been going back and forth discussing different things. If you want to catch more things that we find different between Merida and San Cristobal, definitely check her video out because
we notice different things.
yes.
Yes, like this is why the collaboration works, because you don't want just one person's opinion. Now we have two.
Yeah, so referencing one of the things that we just talked about in her video, which I totally recommend you check out, it is a lot cheaper to live here and do things and learn and just feed my kids, for example, than it is in Merida. And this is because the way they deal with entrepreneurship is so different here than I found in Merida.
And definitely different than the US.
And big time different than the US. So we were talking about how they run their business a certain way, so their prices are affordable to everybody. It's not just like those with affluent backgrounds.
For sure. And again, if we're comparing it to Merida, I think has just so many US expats that there's been a little crossover. And so I think perhaps the natural kind of Mexican culture tendency is to be very fluid, is to kind of go with the flow and to, you know, not overinflate something just because they can. In Merida, I think we train. Like as we travel, as Americans travel, as US citizens travel, we can't help but suggest to people, right, that girl, you're way underpricing this, you should totally up it. And at the same time, telling them all the other things, like you can't just be open once a week, you have to be open at least, you know, a certain amount of time each day. Like we influence a lot more, I think, in Merida than maybe we should. Well, not maybe. We should not influence as much, but it's happened. Whereas here, I think, again, that international vibe, they're doing what they think is right for themselves and their family, and I love it.
Absolutely. So in Merida, there were businesses that catered to Americans. You know, I have not seen that here. Even though there's some that I would say look like the United States and are pricier, still, like the people that go there are tourists from all over the world and not just the United States. So the vibe is just totally different.
And it's backpackers.
Yeah.
I think here it's a backpacker vibe. It's single people who want to be able to continue traveling the world. So they might have money. It's not to say that they don't, but they want their money to last multiple locations, multiple stops. And so they're much more conservative with how they spend, I think.
And the tourists that are not from the United States don't get paid in dollars. Therefore, they don't find, you know, the peso to be that different from their currency back home. So yeah, everywhere has been low prices.
Stare at this one. I stared at that one last time.
He looks like a cool dude. Okay, so another thing that has got, like, I've needed to adjust to is the lack of Ubers. Merida Uber situation was amazing, and it wasn't only Uber, it was, what's the other ones?
We had Didi, Uber, and InDriver. InDriver was one of my favorites.
So if one failed, you had so many other options. Not to mention they also had taxis. So you also had that as an option. But here, there's just one taxi company and they're all, what do you call when they work together?
Like a union, like a...
Yeah, so it's like a union. So there aren't any other options. You can only use a single taxi company. The good thing is, by living in Centro, they're always passing by you. It's really easy to catch one. But if you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, chances are it's gonna be rare when you see a taxi passing by.
Or even just, I'm gonna call it the periférico for lack of, is that what they call it here too? The circle?
The circle around.
When we were at Tamara's house, she's a little bit further out, and it took me a minute to get a taxi.
Yeah, we had to like walk more towards like a busy street to be able to catch it.
Yeah.
They're not gonna know what Tamara is.
No, but they know that we have friends and they have names. So our friend Tamara, who lives a little bit on the outskirts.
Just so you know, we have a friend named Tamara,
Yes,
and she lives
and
in
she's
the
awesome.
outskirts, and she's awesome. so it's definitely different. I just opted for walking everywhere, and the town is small enough that I can.
Yeah. Oh, I do also like here. So in some places, when it comes to taxis, I'm afraid of being gringoed. I'm afraid of the charge being higher than normal. Here, I think the lowest I paid is 40, and the highest I paid is 45. Like,
Yes.
no, I don't want to say no matter where I go, but for sure within, again, that periférico, that's about the price range no matter where I go. So very happy.
So
with
there is
prices.
no confirmation for this, but every ride is supposed to be between 40 and 45.
Somebody told me 35 though, if it's within Centro. Although, why
I've
do you
never
need a
been to
taxi
Centro.
within Centro? I don't understand.
Well, my kids don't like walking. Do your kids like walking?
Kids. Alex doesn't have a choice, to be honest.
Okay. Okay, so my personal last one is the history and like just the learning opportunities. I feel like this is more condensed. You know, Merida had a church here and there, and there were a lot of places that you could take day trips to.
Yes.
But here,
It's a lot more religious here, a lot more Catholic feeling here than in Merida for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And then every little area, every barrio, which is how they divide Centro into, has a history, has a culture, and they kind of like celebrate it. They have, you know, their own saint.
I know the El Cerrillo, Cerrillo Church, which is the environment I live in, or the barrio that I live in. It's kind of weird, but the gentleman that came, whose name I forget right now, he came to free the slaves because a lot of the local communities were slaves to the Spaniards and others, not just the Spaniards. And he came to free them, but at the same time as freeing them, they also built him a church. They also built him a lot of buildings. I don't know all the details, but it's considered much more. So it's a lot historic, and it's a lot less maybe Spanish or Mexican, if you will. Can you say Mexican? Like, my brain is still really ingrained with the idea that everything that happened on this soil is Mexican. So I consider
it's something we didn't know until we actually came here, right?
Yeah.
This is something we have learned the past few weeks, that, you know, not everything here is Mexican. We have so many cultures of the land, but not Mexican.
correct.
So
So much to learn still. So much.